In 2001, we bought an upmarket, if you like, Sunbeam electric blanket, and it was one of those that had a 10 setting variable control on it. We were very happy with that particular electric blanket. In 2011, that electric blanket gave up the ghost. One of the controllers, I think, failed, and rather than replacing the controller, and given that the blanket was 11 years old, we decided to buy a brand new blanket. Because of the fact that we were happy with the previous Sunbeam blanket, we decided that we would buy a Sunbeam Safe and Sound plush fitted electric blanket. The previous blanket was a fitted electric blanket as well. This particular blanket is not the cheapest of the Sunbeam range. In fact, it's one of the more expensive ones, and we decided that we were doing the right thing. The earlier model electric blanket that we had before had the control, and it had a plug that you plugged into the actual blanket, which was near the top right and left hand sides of the older model blanket. No problem with that. And the new model, very similarly, had a control and a plug that plugged into the top left hand and right hand corner of the bed. So nothing wrong with that. And this particular controller, whilst it's a little bit different to the other one, no problem with that, but it has a variable control here, similar 10 settings as with the previous older electric blanket. So we thought we were doing the right thing by buying this latest version of the Sunbeam electric blanket. However, warning, because we have discovered that there can be problems depending upon your bed situation. I should point out that there were no warnings whatsoever in the documentation or in the packaging of this particular new plush fitted Sunbeam electric blanket, so we assumed that we were doing everything correct and were paying for a premium model product. As with the earlier model, this current model has a connecting plug here and an equivalent connecting plug on the other side, which is actually underneath the electric blanket. And being a fitted electric blanket, the skirt goes right in underneath the mattress like this. When fitted, the plug is connected underneath here. The cable comes down to the controller and out through a hole. Because this is a fitted electric blanket, the cable comes out and down and underneath the bed. The problem is, where is the controller? The controller is right down underneath the bed. And to see the dial, you have to actually get down on your hands and knees to be able to see the dial, or to be able to see where you've got the setting, whether you've got it on timer or you turned it off and so on. This is very awkward, and it's made even worse if you have a fitted sheet, as most people do have a fitted bottom sheet on your bed. The controller then gets pushed right back up underneath here, which means it's almost impossible to use and to see and to be able to see what settings you've got it set on. This is far from satisfactory. So here's the thing. In 2001, we bought the earlier model Sunbeam electric blanket, which had the 10 controls. Why didn't we have this problem before? We were very happy with this particular model electric blanket. But this one, as I've already explained, the problem is that the cable between the connector into the blanket and the actual controller is far too short. Let me show you. This is the old controller. That's where they connect into the bed. But look at this. There is the controller on the latest model. There is the controller on the older model. Now, I assumed, given that we were very happy with the previous model and that we were buying an upmarket model blanket, Sunbeam blanket, that we would have the same situation. As a result, with the older model, it meant that this controller, because the cable connecting to the bed was much longer, it meant that this sat much lower. In fact, you could actually sit it on the floor under the bed if you wanted to do that. And this was easily accessible so that you could make adjustments. But not so with with the new one is far, far too short, particularly even worse if you have a fitted sheet on the bottom of your bed. I contacted Sunbeam about this and asked them why we were not told in the packaging, in the documentation that came with the bed, with the blanket, why is the cable too short? Their response was, oh, if you want a longer cable, we can supply you with a new controller with a longer cable here. Oh, and by the way, they're around $70 each. In other words, I have to pay another $140 to replace the two controllers I already have that came with the bed, with the blanket, that came with the blanket. And the blanket cost me about that amount. So in other words, I have to pay the same amount again, basically, as what I paid initially for this brand new blanket to scrap the existing controllers and replace them with new ones that have got a slightly longer cable here, so that we can at least use the controller and be able to see the settings here when it's on the bed and the controller's underneath the bed. Sunbeam will not come to the party in any way, shape or form. I have emailed them again and again and again. They have ignored every single subsequent email. They just simply will not respond. I have asked, look, if nothing else, you should at least have the decency to swap the controllers over at no charge, or at very minimum, a very small changeover fee, and you can have these brand new controllers with the shorter leads, you can have them back again. In their initial response, initial and only response, was we're referring it to our design department, but in the meantime you can replace them with brand new controllers with the longer cable at approximately $140 for the two. These then become totally useless even though they're brand new. So be warned. Sunbeam apparently admit that there is a problem, that these cables are too short. They claim to refer it to their design department, but that's probably just a bluff to get me off their back. But they will not in any way, shape or form consider swapping the controllers over with the longer cables, even at a small fee, if that really is necessary. And there is certainly no reference in any way, shape or form in their packaging or in the documentation that came with the brand new blanket that you might have a problem with the controllers because the cable's too short. I think they've dug a hole for themselves, and I'm not very happy at all. So be warned. If you're buying a brand new Sunbeam Safe and Sound electric blanket, the cables to the controller may not be long enough and will not be reachable easily unless you get down on your hands and knees and look underneath the bed to be able to use the damn thing. Be warned. Sunbeam plush fitted electric blanket, a premium model Sunbeam electric blanket. It is not usable in a lot of bed situations. Be warned. in 2001, we bought an upmarket, if you like, Sunbeam electric blanket, and it was one of those that had a 10 setting variable control on it. We were very happy with that particular electric blanket. In 2011, that electric blanket gave up the ghost. One of the controllers, I think, failed, and rather than replacing the controller, and given that the blanket was 11 years old, we decided to buy a brand new blanket. Because of the fact that we were happy with the previous Sunbeam blanket, we decided that we would buy a Sunbeam Safe and Sound plush fitted electric blanket. The previous blanket was a fitted electric blanket as well. This particular blanket is not the cheapest of the Sunbeam range.